Welcome back to the Schmitter's 100 Acre Woods. So today, just have the otter out here, brought it on the small trailer. So today, the main goal is to do a little bit more clearing at the food plot. So the original plan was to get the 62 out here and get more of those trees, those big trees out. We had storms this past week, got about an inch of rain. So back there where it's all dirt, it just makes so much mess that to get it back to kind of usable land would just take a lot. So just brought the otter and the chainsaws, basically go through. Should be able to get a lot of that stuff cut down. Nothing's budded yet, or has started the bud but no leaves. So it's a little windy, but should be able to get most of that stuff. It's all pretty straight and not really leaning, and none of it's real big. So should be able to get through and get that cleaned up a little bit more. Won't get quite as much done as if we had the 62 here with the grapple, but still get quite a bit cleaned up. And then we'll just have to take some time in the future to get all those logs picked up. Figure if we can get most of the stuff on the ground and then just get like a small pile, even if it's not exactly where we want it. If we can get it on the ground and then kind of get it piled up, and then when it does dry out, either the small tractor with the forks or the 62 with the grapple, they'll get that stuff moved around. And we've been trying to get stuff moved out here anyway, so it'll just get put on the log trailer and moved out at some point either way. So my buddy is coming over to help with that, since it's, you know, kind of his food plot and everything for his hunting. He's got tied up a little bit this morning, so he'll be running just a little bit late, but I have a couple of administrative type things I need to do anyway. I've had someone who has been using our trails as their personal walking trail. They're not hurting anything, it's not disruptive. It's kind of two things, you know, if we're over here and are doing our long range activities and we don't know he's here, that poses a threat to his safety. But then also just the liability of people being on your land now without permission, you know, it causes a whole another thing of issues. So in Indiana we have the purple paint law, so I'm going to go through and do a little bit of purple paint. I know it's not going to stop them, but I'm just going to make it very clear. I don't 100% know which direction they're coming from. I have some guess from the cameras I see them on, because I do catch them on the game cameras. But I'm just gonna make it very clear that, you know, at this stage definitely we don't need or want visitors, and you know, it's something we're gonna run into until actually getting moved out here. I know that's just gonna be an ongoing issue. Luckily I haven't had too many issues with hunters and stuff, just because, you know, a lot of it we have gotten cleaned up and looks like someone's living here, or at least maintaining it now, whereas before it was very obvious it was just you know, vacant. So anyway, I'm going to work on a couple of those administrative type things, and then probably do a loop around the property on our trails. We did have, like I said, some storms come through, so just check and see if we had any tops of trees or trees fall over that need to be cleaned up. Most stuff, you know, I can get cut up and pulled out with the otter, but if there's something that I need to, you know, hold on to or note, and then we can take care of later. So anyway, that's what I'll be working on, and whenever he gets here, we'll get over to the food plot area and start getting some trees on the ground and getting a little bit more of that, what would that be, kind of that eastern section cleaned up. There's a little bit more flat land there where we can open that up and make a pretty decent sized food plot. So it's been a little while since I've kind of shown a video of driving through right now with all the leaves and everything off. And give you a look around the entire property. So kind of looking out here at the water. Right now everything's pretty nice and crisp. It's still just a little cold out, so it hasn't given everything a chance to really bloom. So all that stone was from when the power company came in and had to replace those two poles. So I think they're just about done with that completely. They finally pulled their 4x4 post, kind of wrapping up that entire job. think they had just a little bit longer to make sure that the seed took, and then back in the summer. And then I think they maybe had a requirement kind of later in the year just to make sure that there wasn't any washout or anything. So really what I'm kind of doing here is just checking to see, we had some storms, see if anything's down, as I mentioned before. So this is just a little bit lower and basically just had vines tangled up in it, so got this cut out of the way. Again, with all these vines, just kind of a pain. That tree is actually technically on the neighboring property. They're on the right hand side, but go ahead and just cut it back kind of at the property line so that we have a passable trail. Here, do a little bit of cleanup. So in our long range activities, we had some vines and stuff that were down. Looking at that 1,000-yard marker, so there up that hill just a little bit, there was some vines and a small tree that had broken off. So go ahead and get those cut out of the way. And then go down to the food plot, take a look and see what it looks like down there before my buddy gets here to start working on cutting the trees that are there on the right. Go ahead and get one of the cameras set up so it's ready whenever he gets there, and then head back out to pick him up. Nothing major down, just little things here or there that I want to go ahead and get picked up from the trail. So this is kind of the area that we'll be working. So trying to get all of these trees out. That bigger maple you see on the right, we will eventually get. It's got a pretty big hollow spot in the base of it. So that one will be a later project, but just start by trying to get some of these cut down. So first evaluate kind of how far he's wanting to go with some of this stuff, and what the extents of the food plot are going to be this year. There's kind of a little bit of a slope kind of back there where we're standing, where it starts to slope back toward that pond. So I'm not going to go too much further back there, but just trying to define where exactly we're going to go so that whenever we start cutting trees, know how far back to go. You can see it's fairly windy, so that kind of affects things later on, but most of these small trees aren't too much of an issue. Basically you can just do a small cut on one side and then finish cutting it over. So to start with, just kind of getting some of the smaller stuff cleared out. And there's a pretty good path over there that you can get stuff drug out. But everything small is easier just to drag by hand, and then later on, whenever we finally start to get to the bigger stuff, use the auger to get that stuff pulled out. So that one was one that got stuck in another tree and just didn't want to come out, so that's where the auger is handy. You can just hook to that and get it pulled down. So the nice thing about those chokers is you can kind of wrap them around several different trees here, and as long as you kind of get a little bit of tension on it, it'll cinch right up and just pull them out. Every now and then you'll have one that will escape getting cinched in, but for the most part it will kind of get locked in there and can get multiple things drug out at once, even if everything's not exactly the same direction. So as it's going, kind of getting some of the stumps and stuff cut off so that could get these things drug out. But that's where it's nice having that hook that we made in the back, where you could just get hooked to that. And then just have that one tree, so go ahead and cut these off just a little bit so it can't get stuck. and have most of everything open to the left hand side, so we'll just use the tree there on the left as a pivot to get everything to move around and get it pulled out so we can limit. Most of the stuff is small enough that not necessarily messing with it as firewood, kind of just on a case-by-case basis, looking at it and seeing. I think pretty much everything we cut down today is poplar, so it's not wonderful firewood. It's not like a red oak or something like that that's going to burn really hot, but you know, it's not bad firewood either. So looking at it, you know, could have started with the trees up front there. A couple of those we decided not to cut today, just kind of with the way they were leaning, didn't want them to go the wrong direction without a tractor on them. And then a couple of those others could have went ahead and taken out, but just trying to get some of the smaller stuff taken care of first, and then start working our way kind of out. Initially the thought was, you know, those bigger ones, until I started really looking at them and figuring out which way they're gonna fall, thought we'd fall them into the open spot, but a couple of them were leaning enough, and with the wind, didn't want them to go the wrong direction. Not that it would hurt anything, but just kind of get into a bind to where you know, there's no reason to mess with that when can easily bring the tractor over another time and make sure they go the direction we want. So the small electric saw is actually perfect for doing like limbing like this. This is the smaller top handle saw that we have. I find that it runs at a little bit higher RPM, and definitely for some of this stuff where you know, you have stuff kind of together, you can run it one-handed, which is pretty nice. So if you need to grab a hold of something with your left hand and kind of, you know, relieve pressure or you know, move it a little bit, you can do that and then still run the saw. So for limbing, it is pretty handy. It doesn't work quite as fast obviously as a gas-powered saw, but it's nice because you can do some limbing, and if you don't have two people, you can kind of do some cuts, set the saw down, and it's not sitting there, you know, running the entire time as you maybe, you know, throw off what you've cut and then get back to cutting. So here we're just kind of having a discussion of, you know, how big it's going to be once we're kind of done, and then looking at some of the trees that are left there, kind of left of the shot, and then basically just kind of seeing how the sun's going to come around, and you know, if everything will kind of get sun with the trees that are kind of not directly in the food plot area, just to make sure that, you know, if you plant something, you're going to need some sunlight, and make sure it's going to get what it needs as the sun kind of travels across. If there's any other trees we need to take down to kind of allow that. So continuing here, getting some of the little bit bigger trees, getting what we can cut down, and you know, there's a handful that don't fall exactly the way we want, but can get them down, and then these are all small enough that need to, he can push on it just a little bit as I cut it so that we can kind of get it the direction we want. Again, not that there's anything that is going to really hurt here, it's more just making it easy to pull out and get limbed. You notice driving through there that we have all those red painted stumps, so go ahead and paint everything red just so it's easy to see, so that whenever we go back to try to identify what needs to be run through the grinder, we can easily find those. You start dragging stuff over them and they can quickly disappear, whereas the red's going to stand out. So here's one of those trees that kind of got stuck in another tree and easily drug out with the auto though, so some of the stuff, I'm trying to save what I can as firewood. Most of the stuff is pretty small. Again, it's okay firewood. I can be a little bit more choosy with kind of the type of firewood I want, just with the amount that we have right now. So, the bigger stuff I'll definitely always keep, but some of these smaller things kind of hit or miss on, how much of it we keep. So we went ahead and got a few different ones cut down here, and then go ahead and use the auger to start pulling those out. Again, if we decided we want to salvage that firewood or that wood there, a lot of the kind of the stick, the base of the tree, we're kind of just putting right there at the edge. So if we want to come through and recover some of that, we can. Kind of running out of room there to put wood, so just drug this piece over that direction, and then the next day we'll come back over and work on getting some of that drug out to the main wood yard with the log trailer. So we have a few more that we confidently can get down today. Again, we have about 9 or so that we end up leaving, including a couple of the maples. One of the maples we'll definitely take down just because it's not going to make it. The base of it has a pretty big hole, and we'll eventually kind of start the rot from there. And then another one has some dead limbs, and we'll kind of evaluate whether it comes back once the leaves start to come back and see how it does. So again, just getting those last few pulled out, and then cut off a few of the stumps so that everything's down at the ground, and then go through and touch those with some red marking paint. I'm kind of evaluating here if there's any others we want to cut down today, and decide that we'll just wait. Have a machine there would be a lot safer. So here you can kind of see how much more open it is. So even with those handful left, quite a bit open. You can see all the red that we stumps that we left, the things we cut down. So fair amount cut down, and this time of the year there's not a lot of undergrowth, so it's not quite as bad yet. So we'll get these last few trees down and then kind of evaluate what we need to do next. Okay, so I just got loaded up. Have the auto loaded back up. So I did a quick video just kind of walking through what we had cut. So we got several cut down today. So there's a handful of them that we ended up leaving, about 10 of them. So it was partly kind of 2 reasons. One, all of them would be nice to have the tractor pushing against them. A couple of them aren't leaning the way we really want them to fall. They're going to fall into a bigger tree. The auto will pull that out fairly well, but just no reason to kind of cause that issue today, and it is pretty windy, so that was kind of wreaking a little bit of havoc. And then the other piece is there's one fair-sized maple tree there that then has all the vines growing out of it into other trees, which made cutting a couple of them down a little unpredictable because I thought it was going to fall one direction and the vine ended up swinging it another direction. So there's at least 2 more like that where the vines are intertwined with it. Having the tractor on those, definitely pushing the direction we want to push through those vines, would be good. So we didn't get everything cut down, and I didn't think we would. I figured there'd be a handful that we'd still kind of have up so that we could have the tractor, but we made a really good dent. We got a good portion of it opened up. We went ahead this time and all the stumps that are cut off at the ground for the most part, and then painted them red so that you could easily identify them. So eventually we'll go back through with the stump grinder. We have quite a few at the home site, kind of where the septic is, that we also need to do. So we'll have that as well. So one day we'll make a day of basically just doing stump grinding, and we'll hit those, and then we'll go back to the food plot and hit all those too. So like whenever they drag their harrow rake around, it's all smooth and don't have that issue. A lot of them I could cut closer to the ground with the chainsaw, but running the chainsaw in the dirt dulls the blade. It's just really hard on them. So since we have that stump grinder, I left them up, a handful, 3 or 4 inches, and I'll let the stump grinder eat those away. So one day we'll get that over here and get that cleaned up. And then I got a few more firewood logs out of that. Nothing that's really big enough to mill. They all are fairly small or get small pretty quick. So there's a little bit more firewood and what we need to take down that are bigger for the most part. So we'll get firewood out of those. So we'll have more logs to put on the log trailer and get pulled out here. And we'll just keep adding to that pile. And someday I'll get out here like on a Friday or a weekend day and get some of that stuff cut up just so we can work on getting it moved out of here. So anyway, Dad and I may come back over this weekend or the next and work on getting those 10 or so trees down. And if we do, I'll get that on video. But otherwise, Buddy and I planned in a couple weeks to come back and maybe do some more cleanup. So I may be able to do the stump grinding then. So I just have to see kind of how the weather shakes out. See how the beginning of April turns out. So anyway, that does it for the day. So hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. We'll catch you next time.